What is up, beautiful people? It's Wolf Brother Mythos Kushranada from the channel Frost and Fist, and welcome to this video. This video is actually a tutorial, and I know I don't do them very often, but for a while I've been wanting to show you guys how I make my Frosty River bases. And this is my absolute favorite kind of basing. This is the kind of basing I use anytime that I need to make a Space Wolf, whether it be my HQ choices or some really epic looking dreadnoughts. If I want to make them special and stand out on the tabletop, this is my go-to kind of basing. So I want to share with you guys exactly how I do this Frosty River basing. You can see I've used it on my Wolf Lord here, a couple of dreadnoughts, and most especially the one I'll be showing you today is the one that I did for the Wolf Lord on Thunderwolf I sent to my brother Big D at the Gamecraft Dragon. So if you guys are interested in exactly how I did this base, please follow along and check this out. Alright, beautiful people, so here we are, and here's the base here, and all I've done so far is ripped up some cork board, some cork coasters from Hobby Lobby, and made sure to stack them up at the height I want them to. And this spot right here is going to be where I put the Wolf Guard himself. He's going to be running alongside the Wolf to charge into battle, and I'm going to put the water effects here and have the Wolf kind of splashing through the water. So just stack it up as high as you like for the effect you want, and of course make sure that you go around the edges and kind of rip and pull away so it doesn't leave any super smooth effects. You know, you want it to be naturally kind of ruddy and rocky to give it a more natural kind of look. You know, it's a good rule of thumb is that, you know, nature is not usually uniform, right? Now, of course, the thing I like to try and cover up here is that, you know, it looks corky, right? It looks like 3 layers of cork, so we want to cover some of that up. My favorite thing to do that is just to get some spackling, and here I'm using, you know, just a brand from my local hardware store. And all I'm going to do, make sure you stir it up pretty decently. I've already kind of pre-stirred this a little bit. Just going to take some of the spackling and kind of cover these rocky areas, right? And so that's more than I need, but I want to make sure I get a good coverage. So want to make sure we still smooth across the top where we plan on putting the Wolf Guard. But what we're coming in here and doing is just making sure, just a little bit extra there, making sure that we really push this up into those layers that really give away that cork texture, right? We want to make sure that we give it a more natural kind of consistency and look, really just kind of wipe it into the places you want it. When I do this, I feel like I'm more happy with the consistency and outcome of the texture than if I just left it as cork by itself. Alright, there you are. You can do a little more, a little less to your taste until you're happy with the texture and consistency of your rocks. But all we got to do now is play that waiting game and just wait for it to dry. Once it's made a nice hardened exterior, then we can move on to our next step. If you get any around your bases while it's still soft and kind of moist, it's easy enough to just wipe around with a clean part of your finger and take it off. Yeah, my hands got a little messy during this process. You could use some kind of tool, but honestly I feel like using my finger and just pushing it into those recesses where I want it is the best way for me. But if you want to use a tool to do the same thing, absolutely, you definitely could. Anyways, we'll be back as soon as this dries. Okay, beautiful people, so here we are back, and all I've done since you last saw this is let it dry. I let it dry for it took just a little over a full 24 hours to get, you know, as hard as possible. But now you can see, I mean, this spackling is dried up and not coming off. I went ahead and primed it black, and then to give this spackling just a little bit extra strength and body, you know, I went ahead and hit it with a gloss coat. So you know, it's just got that extra layer of protection. So now I feel like, you know, it's going to be better able to simulate rocks. Definitely more so than just 3 stacked pieces of corkboard. So here, ready to paint it, and I've got here a pewter gray, a light brown, a light gray, and some white. So first thing we're going to do is we just want to give a rough base coat over all the rocks. And if there's anything you miss out on, I mean, that's absolutely fine. You know, nature does have its inconsistencies. Just don't get too crazy with it. And then by the time we get done with the paint job and then dressing it up with some snow and some water effects, it'll be fine. Just try and keep it away from the lip, although if necessary we can always come back later on and clean it up with a little bit of black paint around the rim. I always like hitting it with the gloss coat afterwards, just because you know, you just don't want to have any kind of basing material flaking off mid-game while you're trying to play with it, right? That little extra strength from the gloss coat really helps. Alright guys, just a base color here, and then of course the rest of this flat surface is going to be the bed of the river. So, you know, just kind of paint it up a little bit and leave some darkness, of course, towards the rim. You know, the further away we go from land, of course, the deeper it's going to be, the darker the water can be. No need to make it super smooth. Like I said, you're going to get some dark blue water effects on top of this. Just doing up some paint kind of helps brighten up that water effect a little bit. So just a nice thin layer, no big deal. Alright guys, so again, we'll let this dry and we'll come right back. Alright, next color, I want to add it in an earthy tone, so we're going to introduce a little brown. Alright guys, so removing some of the paint for a dry brush. This is going to be a very heavy dry brush, so don't take all your paint off. But what we're doing is we're just shifting the tone here, leaving some of that dark gray shining through, but kind of shifting the tone there for some earthy tones. Okay. Our next step, an even lighter dry brush, we go to the light gray. And again, it's a lighter dry brush. We want to focus more on our edges. We want to start popping out some of that forced contrast. Also with that light gray, we want to start brightening up some of these areas where we want our water effects to shine through. Alright guys, now I'm going to speed through this because you guys know how to dry brush. But we're just going to take paint off of our brush. And of course, the brighter in colors that we go, the more and more paint that we're going to take off of our brush using a paper towel or dry roll. Here you can see I'm using a really light brown, a really light gray, and then of course finishing it off with a bright white. And of course, each lighter color that you go to, make sure you're easing off on the pressure and using a lighter and lighter dry brush. Now, here, what I want to show you is, of course, you saw me dry brush the rocks and everything, but also I did the dark gray, and then of course I did the lighter gray and eventually the white around the edges. And the reason I did that kind of fade is because as I get further away from the land, of course, I assume the water's getting deeper. Here it is close to the land, of course it's going to be shallower, it's going to be somewhat brighter, and I expect the water to get darker as it goes on. That's because we're using a tinted water effect, and of course when the dark blue water sits on top of that, it's going to stay dark blue where the base is dark blue, and it's going to be brighter where we have this brighter effect here. Alright guys, we're about to start again. So you may notice that there's already a little bit of water effect here at the bottom. What happened is we lost some footage, the camera had an error, the camera fell over, the tripod knocked my base here over, and when the tripod hit it, water effect leaked everywhere. It was a mess. It would make great footage of what not to do when you're doing this step, but unfortunately, because the camera had an error, I don't even have footage of this debacle here, so we're going to take a round two. But just a pro tip for the future, if you ever see a little red flashing light that says error on your camera, don't freak out and snatch at your camera and knock everything over and spill your water effect everywhere. Just a little pro tip for the future. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the edges of the base with my favorite brand of blue tack. Got a little Loctite blue tack here, and we're just going to stretch it out and make us a little bit of a seal around the edges. Now this stuff works great because it is super sticky. It is not a perfect solution. It does have its setbacks. It can get a little too tacky and sometimes stick to your water effects or the edge of the base, and then you got to dig out little bits of blue tack. But even for its flaws, blue tack is my favorite way to mask water effects. Now it's not going to give you that perfectly cylindrical round shape, so if you're looking for that, you know, you may want to try a different solution, but this is just the way that I like to do this particular base. So now I just like to double it up, make sure I get a nice thick piece, and just keep building it around the edges. Now, you want to make sure that you're pressing nice and firm at the bottom to stick the blue tack to the base. You want to make sure you're not pushing it in on the top here, because that's going to spread onto your base, and that's going to be space wherever your blue tack is taking up space that your water effect's not going to be able to go. So you just want to make a wall of it, but pressing firmly to the bottom of the base so that way it sticks to the plastic. Okay? I'm going to come all the way around all the parts that could possibly come into contact with the water effect. Now, how tall should you make these walls? Well, just look at your piece and think, how high do I want that water to come up? In this case, I want it to come up to about this first layer of rock, right around the wolf's ankles here. So that's all I need as far as height. But if you were going to build it up higher, you of course would need to make sure that your water effect is set a little higher. Make your walls a little bit higher. So here I just felt like my wall was a little bit thin here. So I'm just adding another layer to make it a nice thick layer that's going to hold up to the water effect. Alright guys, here we are, and you can see I haven't done this back edge, and that's because I only plan on the water coming up from this front part here to this bottom layer of rock. This rock back here has no reason to have the water effect, but if you really wanted to make sure, be absolutely positive, you could go all the way around. Now, make sure, again, I know I've said this already several times, make sure you pinch nice and firm, go all the way around, and make sure that you've pinched every part of this blue tack firm against the plastic base, or you will have a leak. But this stuff once you do pinch it to the base though, this stuff does a really good job of staying pretty waterproof for that water effect. Now guys, you're going to set it down and make sure that it's relatively flat. If you set it down and the way you've stuck the blue tack on has made it unlevel, tilted one side or the other, that will affect your water effect pour. Seems relatively level here though, so I'm going to go with that spot. And this is the water effect that I use, okay, from Scene-O-Rama. Alright, and this is the water effect here that I use from Scene-O-Rama. And you can see here it is blue realistic water. Since it's already tinted blue, that's why I painted the different tones down there of grays and whites, because the whiter the spots you have down there, since this is a dark blue color, and the more of that blue that'll come through. Of course, the darker you leave your base, of course, the more the dark blue and hard to see the water is going to be. Now, what's great about this stuff is self-leveling and comes out nice and glossy. Now, even though it's self-leveling, you know, you can try and guide it along by just trying to give a nice even pour around the base. But again, this stuff will level out pretty much on its own. Now, of course, again, I can't stress it enough. If you have gravity issues, if it's tilted one way or another, that will reflect in how your resin starts to dry. Okay, I wanted it to come up to that bottom layer of rock right there, so that's exactly where I'm going to stop this pour. Now, a couple of important things here. First of all, it says in the instructions, do not shake your water effects, and that's because if you shake this bottle up before you pour, what's going to happen is it's going to leave bubbles in your resin, and then when you pour it, you're going to have to struggle to pop all those little bubbles, and if you don't, what will happen is that those bubbles will stay trapped in your water effect, and it'll be a little less convincing. It's a minor annoyance, but not, you know, not the end of the world if you accidentally shook it up a little too much or you got a few bubbles there. I know with the paint, you know, we definitely want to shake up our paints all the time, so you really got to remind yourself not to shake this stuff up. But if you don't, you'll have a much smoother pour. So, okay, so remember, don't shake this stuff up. Now comes the really hard part, guys. Leave it alone and do nothing for about 2 to 3 days. Okay? And what's going to happen is this stuff is going to shrink as it dries. So after you leave it alone for a couple days, keep checking on it, of course. Don't pick it up unless you have to, but check on it and see how it's drying. And it may dry one way or the other anyways, but if it does, it's okay, because what's really cool is that if you put a thin layer of this stuff over it, you know, trying to level it out, it will help dry it off later. So we're going to check on it. It might require a second pour, but then we'll come back and, you know, add that in, and I'll make sure to capture all that on film if we need another pour. The hardest part is waiting 2 to 3 days and doing nothing. Except in this case, I'm about to go out of town for a few days, so you know, I'll be able to come back to a nice water effect surprise and not have to worry about it while I'm gone. Alright guys, so we will catch you back after enough time has elapsed. Alright guys, so I poured this on a Monday, and here it is Friday. I just got back from Louisiana, and let's take a look and see how we have cured. So you can see here, I didn't seal at the back here, nothing spilled out. You can see, nice clean desk, no leaks, so I really do like this blue tack. It is not the perfect solution, but it works for me. It works for what I do with bases. Now, I'm going to be real careful here. Again, blue tack is a very strong, sticky sealant, and so that can definitely be, again, I said before that each of these products, you know, have their problems, and the sticky tack, the blue tack being so sticky can be the downfall. There we go. Alright guys, so one of the easiest ways to get blue tack off of something is to use more blue tack, and it'll pull it right off in most cases. And then anything it doesn't, we can just clean up afterwards. Okay, I did some of that off camera just because I had to get at some funky angles to get it off. But there we go. So, couple of things. Now, like I said, blue tack, I like it. It comes out nicely. It is not a perfect solution though. So, a couple areas like here or over here, I'm going to need to touch those rocks back up. But other than that, I mean, you can see all the way around it made a perfect seal. It held the water effects in, and I have this wolf leaping out of the water effects. So it's exactly what I wanted. Now, in some cases, if you don't like the extra flange as it dries, there's a couple things you can do here. You can pour in a few more water effects, a little bit more water effects before pulling your blue tack and helping it even out some. Doing a couple of thin pours on top of the one big pour will help it level out. The other thing is that you could take a good sharp set of cutters and go around. I kind of like this raised flange here on the way around because it almost looks like in the act of leaping, you know, the ripple effects out, you know, kind of would cause a little wave coming out there. So I kind of like that ripple effect there. But overall, yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch up these rocks from where we had, you know, the water effects pull off some of the paint. We'll redo the paint, and then we'll stick our wolf guard on. So, be right back, guys. Alright guys, so I just did that real quick off screen, but there you go. So I just took those areas that were exposed, where the spackling was, you know, exposed and whatnot, and I just put down the same colors as we did before, and it's back to its rocky looking self. So there we go. Now we're going to go ahead and apply our wolf guard. So here's where I've got our wolf guard. I'm going to take my drill for this. I'm going to see where I want this guy posed. So running right about here. Okay, so I'm going to take the end where I've got the clip. I'm going to take the end where I've got my paper clip here. Kind of make my little mark in the stone where I want to drill. Drill myself a little hole. So that way we can get this pin going all the way down in the cork. And anytime I do a piece of cork basing that's got this many layers to it, I try to use a nice long piece of paper clip that's going to really hold in the inside of the base, right? And this is going to go through all 3 layers. So I want some of this to be on the paper clip itself. I want some of it to be on the bottom of the foot. And I want some of this to be on the bottom of the back foot too. Just want some good solid connection. Alright, and now that is looking pretty cool, I feel. So now what we're going to do is we are going to add on our snow flocking. Alright guys, so now I'm going to pick out a few areas where I want some snow to be. And I think here along this shoreline looks like a good point. Okay, I want to pick, of course, also here along this shoreline. Okay, I definitely want some here to kind of blend together where the water effect meets the base a little bit. And we'll start with those areas. And of course I've just poured some of that snow effect into a little bowl where I can try and drizzle it on the areas that I want. Shake off any excess. And in some of these areas, I'm going to want a even thicker flurry effect. So I'm going to come on top of some of this snow effect I already did. Just put down another layer of super glue and another layer of snow. Now we've done so much work to the rock and the water and stuff like that, I don't want to go too crazy. But yeah, I do want to add some snow effect to a few of these places. Alright guys, so it probably didn't come out very well on camera, so what I've done is I've just added some super glue to select areas where I wanted it covering the rocks. I used some Woodland Scenics soft snow, and anywhere there was super glue, sprinkled it on. I also hit a couple of areas of the armor here, here, and here, and in the fur a little bit, and then a little bit in the fur of the wolf, especially the mane, a little bit of the tail, you know, just to kind of show, you know, that they've been running through the snow. And yeah, just, oh, a little bit on the shield. Yeah, a little bit on the shield, so, you know, just showing that they've been through it, you know. Alright, all that's left is to blacken these edges. Alright, so after that dries, we'll give it a quick matte varnish and then we'll polish back up the water effects and it should be done. Alright, beautiful people, so we've blackened the rims, we've matte varnished everything down so that way all the highlights are nice and clear, and I think this guy looks pretty good. So the only thing left for me to do is that our water looks nice and frosty, which is great if we wanted it to be frosty water. However, one thing is that because the wolf is in the water, I'm going to want this water, you know, to be a little more wet and a little less frosty. So what I'm going to do is, you could absolutely use something like GW's Hard Coat. However, since I want to create a few ripples and stuff, I want something just a little thicker. So I'm just going to use some good old gloss medium you can find anywhere. This came from my local Walmart for, I got this giant tube for $2. I think it was on sale though. It might be a few bucks more expensive than that, but just some good old gloss medium you could get at any hobby supply store. So I've put some of that gloss medium into a little cap here. And all I want to do is I want to shiny up some of that water. Obviously don't use your best brushes for a task like this. And while it goes on a white color, it will dry clear, so don't worry about that. And I actually find that pretty useful because it being a solid color before it dries kind of helps me see where my shine is going to go. So I'm just going to spread this gloss medium around, and then I'll come back and add in some ripples and shapes. Now you'll see me going back here and adding some extra product right underneath the wolf, and that's because I imagine that you can see kind of the pose I've gone for is the wolf leaping up kind of out of the water. So I wanted to just add some extra raised agitation here, like the water's a little more churned up, you know, right where the wolf is leaping out. And then all over, I'm just kind of giving a little dabbing motion, right, to simulate, you know, rough waters that have been churned up for the wolf's pounce or leap. And we definitely don't want to leave any streaks. So anywhere you've got a streak of the product, you know, give a little dab. Give a little dab for those rough waters. Alright guys, we will be back when all this dries. So there it is guys, my completed base for Big D's Thunder Wolf Lord. It's nice and shiny now with some of that gloss medium, and overall I really like the way this thing has come out, and I love how the Wolf Lord himself looks. Love how the Thunder Wolf looks. Love the pose, and I think this base really, you know, helps display how epic this model is. So I hope you guys like how the base turned out too, and I hope some of you guys may try recreating this look. You know, if you use some of the products that I used to make this base happen, you know, definitely let me know how they worked out for you guys. I'd really love to see if anyone else you know, decides to follow this recipe and, you know, do a base that's somewhat like this. Anyways, yeah, we'll go on to some display pics now, and you guys let me know what you think of how everything came out. Alright guys, so that's the tutorial. That is exactly how I make my Frosty River bases. And like I said, this is my favorite kind of base. I really hope that somebody ends up trying this tutorial and making one of these bases for themselves. If you do, please let me know, you know, send us some pictures. I'd love to see what you guys do with this tutorial. If you guys like this tutorial, please make sure that you grab up an ox and smash that like button in the name of the Emperor. Drop me some comments down below. Let me know if you guys like this tutorial, and of course if you plan on trying this for any models in the future. And if you guys are not yet subscribed to the channel, I know Freakalicious and I would love to have you as part of the pack here on the Frost and Fist. Until next time guys, stay frosty.